I didn't believe in curses. Before all this, I laughed at stories of haunted houses, doors that whispered your name, or cursed family heirlooms. I was rational, practical, a spreadsheet kind of guy. I believed in mortgage rates, not monsters, which is exactly what made me the perfect target. I wasn't even looking for anything out of the ordinary. Just needed a change of scenery, somewhere quieter, more remote. The city had been wearing me down. People always living on top of each other, smiles without eye contact. The constant hum of things you're not allowed to care about. So I sold my small condo, called in a favor from a friend in real estate, and started looking for places outside the metro area. I didn't have a huge budget, but I wasn't picky either. I just wanted a yard, some trees, quiet, some place to sit still and breathe again. One morning, while scrolling through listings over instant oatmeal, I saw something strange. It was just another property posting, buried between overpriced lakefront cabins and foreclosed fixer-uppers. But what caught my eye wasn't the house. It was the logo, a sunflower, but not yellow, blue, bright cerulean petals. A little eerie, honestly, like someone had washed a sunflower in glacier water. I didn't think much of it, just figured it was some boutique real estate brand trying to be artsy. What really sold me was the price. For a 3-bedroom, 2-bath farmhouse on several acres with forest access, the asking price was absurdly low, suspiciously low, the kind of low that makes your stomach think something your brain refuses to process. Still, I couldn't resist the pull. It wasn't far, maybe 90 minutes north. The open house was that same day. By noon, I was halfway upstate, tires crunching gravel, signal bar long gone. My friend Mia, my agent, warned me not to expect much. If it's that secluded, and it's been on the market this long, there's probably something wrong with it. But the idea of isolation didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a promise. When I finally arrived, I almost thought I'd taken a wrong turn. There was no neighborhood, not really. Just trees, a mailbox with faded lettering, and then I saw it again. That blue sunflower. It was staked into the grass by the driveway on one of those plastic sandwich signs. In bold serif letters, under the flower's petals read, "Open House, Sun Plenty Real Estate." Something about that phrase. Sun plenty. Like someone tried to say plenty of sun but gave up halfway. I parked anyway. Habit, maybe. Foolishness. The wind had picked up a bit, and the trees made this low groaning sound as they leaned together. I told myself it was normal. Just wind. The house stood modest and slightly crooked at the top of a small hill. White with gray trim. Wrap-around porch just worn enough to feel authentic. There was a separate garage, detached, but the paint didn't match the house. Looked newer. I took a deep breath, climbed the porch, knocked. Nothing. I checked the latch. It turned freely. Inside, the air smelled stale, but not dirty. Just still. The bottom floor had that sort of wood paneling you'd only see on a grandparent's summer cottage. Everything was silent except for a faint hum coming from somewhere upstairs. I called out, "Hello, is anyone here?" but received only echoes. And then I saw him. A man stepped around the staircase in the center hall. Wireframe glasses, bright eyes, hair thinned but slicked back, like a man who remembered being charming. "Oh, you must be here for the open house," he said with a smile just slightly too wide. I nodded. "You the agent?" "Absolutely. Paul Anders, or just Paul. Come in, make yourself at home." He gestured with both hands around the room. "You're actually the first one today." I hesitated. I saw a car parked outside. Ah, he blinked. Yes, the caretaker. Old property like this needs looking after. I don't know why that phrasing stuck in my head. Looking after. Like it was a child or a sick animal, not a building. Still, I walked through the house with Paul. It was nicer than I expected, though clearly outdated. Lots of wood. Floral wallpaper that looked like it belonged in a 70s movie. The upstairs had a peculiar layout. One hallway, but with 4 separate doors, all identical. No labels. This used to be a boarding house long ago, Paul explained. Each of those rooms has its own segment of the house and separate plumbing, separate locks, quite self-contained. I paused. Isn't that a fire hazard? He laughed, not dismissively, more like nervously. Well, yes, by modern standards, but it's part of the historic charm. When we looped back downstairs, Paul pointed to a side room just off the base of the stairs, a study, with books piled high and a strange smell like wax and soil. That's the only part we ask visitors not enter, he said, blocking the doorway with his arm. Why? Oh, just storage. The previous owner left some things we haven't cleared out. I leaned over his shoulder before he gently nudged me back. For a split second, I swear I saw something on the far desk. A figurine. Maybe a sculpture? No, a vase. Shattered and blackened like it had been through fire. Let's check out the kitchen, he said quickly. Maybe too quickly. I followed out. I don't remember exactly when it clicked. Maybe somewhere around seeing the back porch door slightly ajar, though Paul insisted the place had been locked all morning. Or maybe when I asked about power lines, and he tilted his head like I'd asked him where the sky went. But something was off, and then I noticed it. Tucked under the fridge magnet, a slip of paper, barely an inch wide. On it, scrawled in thin black pen, "Don't sleep here, don't eat, don't close any doors." I looked up at Paul. His smile hadn't moved. I subtly slipped the paper into my pocket and pretended not to notice its shaking edge. My eyes flicked toward Paul, whose demeanor hadn't changed. Still that too big grin. Still that faintly unblinking stare. Mind if I look around out back? I asked, already walking toward the porch. He nodded without a word. The porch creaked beneath my steps. Beyond it, overgrown grass swayed under a grayish blue sky. Except, it wasn't the sky that held my gaze. There were more signs, stuck into the ground like lawn sale arrows, pointing in seemingly random directions. Each of them had the same blue sunflower, faded now, as if they'd been there for years, or through things. I stepped into the backyard, and a sharp metallic scent cut the air. It was iron. Not fresh, wet blood, but old, dried and dusted into the soil. A familiar rot that didn't belong to animals. The trees at the edge of the property didn't move right either. They swayed opposite the wind, like something inside the forest was breathing slower than the world around it. I turned back to the house, and that's when I saw her. A woman, standing inside the upstairs window, straight above the study. Pale, motionless, face half obscured by curtain shadow. Her lips moved, but no sound. Just a whisper pressed against thick old glass. Help. That's what I thought I saw. Maybe my fear was reading into it, but something about the tightness of her knuckles against the windowsill said otherwise. This wasn't a trick of light. Someone was trapped in that house. I rushed back through the porch door, which I now noticed had no lock, and stepped inside. Paul wasn't in the kitchen anymore. The sound of humming came down the stairs instead. High-pitched, repetitive, a grinding kind of tune, like a broken music box struggling to remember a melody. I headed for the stairs. Each riser groaned like it was swallowing my weight. The second floor was bathed in pale light from a single hallway bulb. The 4 doors Paul had mentioned earlier stared back like blank faces. One was slightly ajar, just enough to invite curiosity. I approached and pushed it open slowly. It was a bedroom, sort of. Bed frame without covers, walls lined with maps and pinned note cards, most of them blank. A desk sat against the window, and just behind it, her. The woman. She turned when I entered. Not startled, not afraid, just tired. "Do you see it yet?" she asked. I blinked. "See what?" A thin, colorless smile on her lips. The shape of the lie. It always starts with sunlight. Except it isn't light, is it? It's imitation. What are you talking about? She walked over slowly, her eyes panicked, but her movements controlled, like someone trying not to wake a beast. "Paul let you in?" I nodded. Of course he did. That's what Paul does. He invites. Paul is the bell. The house is the temple. And the sunflower is the seal. She pushed something into my hand. Another note. "Don't give him the key." "What key?" "Then you haven't seen it yet," she whispered. "Don't look in mirrored surfaces. Don't whisper the house's name." I shook my head. "Lady, you're not making any sense. You're clearly trapped," she cut in, eyes wide. "You won't be, not yet, but you will be. Because once you're remembered by the house, it never forgets." She walked to the mirror next to the door and hung her head in front of it, but didn't look up. "You need to go. If it's already in your periphery, it's too late. Don't open more than 3 doors. Don't ask Paul about the basement. Most important of all, if a door leads to the inside of another house, it's not another house." And with that, she shut the door between us with a firm click. I backed away and realized all 4 doors were open slightly now. That wasn't how I'd left them. Paul's voice drifted from downstairs, cheerful and clear. "Find what you were looking for." I jogged down, nerves coiled in my spine. I think I should go. I've got another showing." "Nonsense," Paul chirped. "You've barely seen the basement." "I'm not interested in the—" He swung the basement door open before I could finish. Cold air drifted up from within. It smelled like copper and damp leaves. "Just a peek," he said flatly now. The cheer in his voice had dried up. "I really should—" "You've already seen the flower," he said. My mouth went dry, and from the moment your mind made sense of that color, you were part of it. It's not a symbol. It's a door. I stepped back. He smiled again. "The teeth weren't wrong, but they weren't right either. Longer. Too square. Like they were shaped from memory, not biology. I should thank you. Very few visitors make it as far as you. You're observant. That's worth something." "What are you?" "You're going to understand things now. Terrible things. Ancient homes that exist between occupancy and memory. Cities you can only reach from the wrong stairwell. Towns painted into the folds of your brain that only show up when you dream of real estate." I turned and ran through the front door, only it wasn't open. It wasn't even a door now. It was a wall. No seams. Where the frame had been was now plaster and wood and yellowed floral wallpaper stretching unbroken across the entire front of the house. I slammed my palms against it. Nothing. No give. Paul's footsteps creaked behind me. Calm. Slow. "You'll adjust," he said conversationally. "The house will offer you a job, maybe even a family. Don't get tricked. Don't eat. Don't sleep. Don't remember being somewhere else, because the house will use that against you. I spun. What even is this place? Paul's eyes glimmered with something deeper than light. You call it a blue sunflower, but that's just what your kind sees. That's what your mind lets you see. He handed me a key. Bronze, ornate. It was already in my hand before I'd even seen him move. When the rooms begin changing, you'll know what to do. I stared down at it. No, I whispered. I dropped the key. That was a mistake. The thud it made hitting the floor was loud. Final. Hollow in a way that filled the whole house like a throat being cleared by the earth itself. The walls muttered something. Not in words, but in acknowledgement. Paul smiled, taking a deep breath, his chest collapsing inward like a deflating balloon, like his very form was reshaping to accommodate something else. The lights flickered. The air turned thick. And somewhere upstairs, something opened a door. Something about that sound, the door creaking open upstairs, broke through every layer of rational thinking I had left. It wasn't the volume, it was the timing. The way it seemed to open directly in sync with my heartbeat, as if the house had figured out my rhythm and matched it. There was no point in pretending anymore. I wasn't at a property showing. I wasn't talking to a man named Paul. And this place wasn't a house. It was something wearing a house. From the moment I saw that sunflower logo, I'd stepped into a lie, carefully stitched into reality. With wood, wallpaper, and memory. I ran. Not because I knew where to go, but because stillness felt like agreement with whatever this was. I bolted from the fake front door toward the kitchen, slipping slightly on the warped tile as I turned the corner. The basement door was still open, yawning like a mouth that didn't know how to chew. Just swallow. Don't, I whispered to myself, backing away. A groan came from the basement, not human, not mechanical. It was like a tree stretching in a vacuum. Then a clang. The bronze key was no longer on the ground where I'd dropped it. Paul was nowhere to be seen. The whole house snapped into silence, like someone had slammed a lid over a noise-filled box. I clawed open a cabinet. A drawer. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe a knife, maybe an exit, maybe a reality I could make sense of. That's when I remembered what the woman upstairs had said. Don't eat. Don't sleep, Don't close any doors. I had already closed the upstairs bedroom door, and I had opened 5 others by now. How many did I get? 6? No. Wait. Were the ones in the garage separate? Had I opened the bathroom door when I got in? I suddenly couldn't remember exactly what the house wanted. Panic took over. Grab anything sharp. Find high ground. Avoid mirrors. Those weren't survival tips. They were instincts, and they weren't mine. I grabbed the long, rusted handle of a BBQ skewer from a drawer and held it like a knife. It wasn't ideal, but it was solid metal. Cold in my hands. The hallway behind me stretched, just slightly too long. Like the house was testing space, and it hadn't quite landed on the right dimensions yet. At the end, the staircase and upwards now had shadows it didn't cast before. And something was watching me. No eyes, no face, but I knew. It was watching from behind one of the doors, from behind all of them. I ducked low, sliding into the study before I could think better. Papers, books, notes, all scattered across the floor like someone had left in a hurry. It was chaos, but it wasn't random. Notes pinned to the inside of the window frame. Scratched diagrams carved into the desk. I flipped open notebook after notebook, trying to find anything useful. Most were filled with scientific jargon, mathematical glyphs alongside crude drawings of doorways, with numbers labeled by phases or states. Then, one note struck me. The house is not dimensional. It is intentional. It remembers entropy near the conscious. I didn't understand it completely, but the message was clear. This wasn't a haunted house. It was a sentient filter, a predator disguised as a place. And its prey weren't people. It was thought itself. Sanity. Narrative. It fed on conclusions, on the act of assigning meaning to mystery. The more I tried to make sense of it, the more I belonged to it. My breathing sped up. A whisper passed from behind the wall, just outside the study. Someone pacing? No. No footsteps. Drag marks. I looked down. A wet stain had crept under the door, dark and slow, pooled like oil, gleaming bronze. The key. It had returned, but not alone. A humming sound rose like a choir warming up backstage, but it wasn't music. It was shape. A sustained tone that felt round and old and angry. I backed into the study closet, pulling the door mostly, but not all the way, closed. The woman's words floated back into my skull like blood fumes. "Don't close any doors!" Light flickered. The circle of the overhead lamp began to spin slowly, like a carousel over a sleeping child. Except I wasn't sleeping. Something else was. Strange shadows danced on the walls from no visible source. Some held still, human silhouettes, until they started crawling in place. I buried my face in the pages. One notebook had something useful, scrawled in messy, broken lettering. The keys don't open doors. They decide which one is real. Don't let the house choose for you. Then beneath it, test your memory. Trace the path backwards. If it doesn't line up, it's not your memory. I sat there, sweaty and wild-eyed, trying to remember. What turn had I made into the driveway? What exit did I take off the highway? Had I even eaten breakfast this morning? Something buzzed at the base of my skull, like a little drill shaving away my certainty. I imagined myself waking up in the condo I sold, calling Mia, telling her I changed my mind, getting pizza in the city from that place with the blue door, blue sunflower. The house didn't just feed off me, it had entered memories, polluted them like ink into water. I needed to break the connection, but I didn't even know how deep inside I already was. "Back door," I whispered. Had there been a back door? A second exit? Yes, it had been ajar when I first came in. That was it. Had to be it. I burst from the study, carefully not touching the doorframe, still holding that gleaming BBQ skewer like it could mean anything in this place. The hallway had changed. Slightly. The corners had rounded more. The doorknobs looked wet. Not visibly dripping. Just reflective and sticky with something not in the world. I sprinted. No shape gave chase, but I knew that wasn't a kindness. Whatever hunted here didn't need to move. The kitchen looked normal again. That's what scared me most. It was perfect. Tidy. Clean. Fridge humming. That slip of paper I found earlier. Gone. But in its place, on the counter, sat a plate. A porcelain dish with 2 slices of toast. No butter. No crumbs. Just perfectly golden browned bread. "Don't eat," I whispered. But my hand moved. Autonomous muscle jerk, like sleepwalking. I pulled it back, hard, slamming my own wrist into the fridge to break the trance. The toast sizzled slightly. It hadn't just been warm, it was still cooking. But there wasn't a toaster. The sound stopped, and the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was watching. Everything. I ran toward the back door. Gone. replaced by a white cabinet with a blue sunflower painted on the center, as if it had always been that way. I turned around, searching for Paul, for the woman upstairs, for anything that could explain how to undo this. And then I noticed something new. On the floorboards near the cabinet, scratched deep into the wood, "You can leave, but not with your shape." I backed slowly toward the stairs. I didn't know what that meant, but I had a terrible feeling. I was about to find out. The upstairs shifted as I climbed, but not loudly. It wasn't the kind of creaking you hear in horror movies that warns you of something wrong. This was worse. This was silence pretending to be noise. The hallway was longer now. 4 doors had become 5. Each identical. Old brass handles, white panels, faint floral patterns. Except the one farthest at the end. That one had no handle at all. I took a step forward, then another. The hallway light flickered like a pulse. As I passed the first door, I heard a baby crying. The second, an old jazz tune playing on record. The third, my own voice, whispering my name from the other side of the door. It wasn't supposed to know that. I pressed forward. The woman was in the 4th room. I didn't knock. I couldn't. Her head was bowed over a journal, her hand shaking as she scribbled something I couldn't read. "You came back," she said, without looking up. "You always come back." I need to know how to end this. The back door's gone. Everything's changing. It's remembering you faster. You're staying too long. Then help me before it finishes, before I forget who I am. She finally looked up, eyes hollow and dry. The look of someone who's watched too many people die the same way. "You won't like the answer." "I'll take anything." She reached under the bed and pulled out a mirror. Not big, maybe the size of a dinner plate. Old frame, cracked edge. "I told you not to look into mirrors," she said. "Yeah, I remember. You still shouldn't. But if you do, don't blink. And don't look away until it shows you the truth." I didn't ask what that meant. I took the mirror with both hands, dropped to my knees in the middle of the room, and stared. At first, it was just me. Tired, sweaty, pale. Then, my reflection didn't blink when I did. I leaned forward. So did it, but slower. Wrong. Its mouth opened. So did mine, until it kept going. The mouth stretched into a circle, then into a hollow spiral, revealing a keyhole where its throat should be. One that matched the bronze key. And in the pupil of my mirrored eye, I saw a door inside a door, folding like paper in firelight. When I blinked again, the mirror cracked in my hands. The woman was gone. So was the room. I stood in the 5th doorway at the end of the hall, the one with no handle. Behind me, the hallway flickered like old film, grainy, jittering, until it disappeared. No walls, no floor, just darkness, stretching outward like memory loss. Only the door remained. I exhaled and touched it. It opened outward, painfully slow. On the other side, not a room, not the outside world. It was a spiral staircase made of light. And at the top, floating in blackness, was the blue sunflower. More massive than I'd ever imagined. Its petals spun gently in a slow rotation, and inside the center was a house just like the one I'd entered. Except it had no windows, no way in, a closed circuit, a trap. The flower blinked. Once. Then the space twisted, and I fell sideways into reality. I staggered, gasped, and realized I was back in my car. Parked. outside a real estate office I didn't remember driving to. Blue sunflower logo painted on the glass, but it was burnt black at the edges, as if scorched into the world. My phone buzzed. Mia. One new voicemail. Her voice crackled. "Hey, I tried looking up that Sun Plenty company. There's no record. Nothing. Nobody's leased that property in over 30 years. You said you met someone inside? Was it Paul? Wait, you told me that on the phone already, didn't you?" She paused. "I didn't call you today, did I?" Click. Silence. I looked up. Someone, or something, was watching from inside. Paul, or the echo of him, holding the bronze key, smiling. I turned the key in my ignition. It didn't start. I tried again. Nothing. Behind the glass, Paul lifted his other hand and tapped once on the window. Not hard, like a heartbeat. Then the flower behind him bloomed. Blue turned to black, and everything else turned to static. They say never look back once you escape a haunted place. But I didn't look back. I never left. Not really. And now, neither will you. Because if you're still here, if you're still listening, you've seen it too. The blue sunflower. It knows your shape now, and it remembers you.